The loan officer turned the screen toward me. "Sir, we can't approve you. Your debt-to-income ratio is 90%. I had zero debt. My wife started crying. I sat there in that sterile bank office, the fluorescent lights humming overhead, completely frozen. Sarah's tears weren't the gentle kind. They were panicked, desperate sobs that echoed off the walls. The loan officer, a young guy named Marcus who couldn't have been more than 30, looked between us with growing discomfort. He was shifting in his chair, adjusting his tie, clearly wishing he was anywhere else but in that room with us. He apologized and told me that according to their records, I had 17 active credit accounts with a combined balance of over $380,000. $380,000. I felt the room tilt. The walls seemed to close in. I asked to see that screen again, my voice coming out flat and cold. Marcus hesitated, his eyes darting to Sarah, who had her face buried in her hands, before he slowly rotated the monitor back toward me. There it was, line after line after line of credit cards, store cards, personal loans, names I recognized, names attached to my social security number, names that Sarah had clearly opened without ever telling me. Each line on that screen was like a knife to the gut. Macy's, Nordstrom, Chase, Capital One. Names that just kept going, scrolling down the page. I was 55 years old. We'd been married for 23 years. 23 years of what I thought was a solid partnership. We'd raised 2 kids together, both now in college. We'd weathered storms, celebrated victories, built what I believed was an honest life. I made $200,000 a year as a senior project manager. We lived comfortably. We never fought about money because I thought we didn't have money problems. And here I was, discovering that my wife had been living a completely separate financial existence. I turned to Sarah, my voice barely above a whisper, and asked how long this had been going on. She couldn't look at me. She just kept crying, her shoulders shaking, her hands trembling. Marcus mumbled something about giving us a moment and practically fled from his own office. I could hear him outside, probably pretending to file papers or check on other clients, anything to avoid coming back in. The silence that followed was suffocating. Outside the office, I could hear the normal sounds of the bank. People conducting their ordinary business, probably getting approved for loans, probably living honest lives with their spouses. Inside that office, my entire world was crumbling, piece by piece. I asked again, how long had she been doing this? Sarah wiped her eyes, smearing her mascara down her cheeks. She tried to tell me it wasn't what I thought, but I cut her off. I told her exactly what I thought. I thought she'd been secretly opening credit accounts in my name and racking up hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt without telling me. So please, I said, tell me what it actually is. She took a shaky breath and explained that it started small. Just a credit card here and there for things we needed. But I interrupted her. Things we needed? I made $200,000 a year. We didn't need to go into debt for things. She raised her voice, telling me I didn't understand the pressure. Keeping up with everyone, making sure the kids had everything, making sure our house looked right, that she looked right. All of it. That's when I said the word that hung between us like a guillotine blade. Fraud. Because that's what it was. She'd opened accounts using my information without my knowledge or consent. That was identity theft. That was fraud. My own wife had committed fraud against me. Marcus poked his head back in, probably hoping we'd magically resolved everything. I stood up immediately and told him we were done, thanking him for his time. I needed to get out of that building. I needed air. I needed to think. Sarah scrambled to follow me out of the bank. I could feel people staring as we walked through the lobby. A middle-aged couple in obvious distress. In the parking lot, the bright afternoon sunlight felt harsh and unforgiving. Sarah grabbed my arm, begging me to wait, telling me we could fix this, we could work this out. I turned to face her. In that sunlight, I could see every line on her face, every trace of panic in her eyes. This woman I'd loved for more than 2 decades. This stranger who'd been systematically destroying our financial future. I told her to get in the car. The drive home was silent except for her occasional sniffles. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tight my knuckles turned white. My mind was racing, trying to calculate, trying to understand the scope of what she'd done. $380,000. That was more than our house was worth. That was more than we had in savings. That was debt that could follow us for the rest of our lives. When we got home, I went straight to my office and pulled up our credit monitoring account. I hadn't checked it in months, maybe even a year, because I'd trusted her. What an absolute idiot I'd been. The report confirmed everything Marcus had shown us and worse. There were late payments, maxed out cards, accounts in collections. My credit score, which I'd always kept pristine, had been demolished. Sarah appeared in the doorway. She'd changed out of her nice dress into sweatpants, cleaned off her makeup. She looked small and defeated, but I couldn't feel sympathy. Not yet. Maybe not ever. I told her I wanted to see everything. Every statement, every card, every purchase. All of it. Right now. She tried to protest, but I cut her off. I told her it was now or I was calling a lawyer. She flinched at that word, but nodded. Over the next 2 hours, she brought me everything. Shopping bags she'd hidden in the back of closets. Bags I'd never seen before. Statements she'd been receiving at a P.O. box I didn't even know she had. Login information for accounts I'd never heard of. She'd been receiving mail at a separate location for years, and I'd never known. The picture that emerged was staggering. It had started 8 years ago with a single department store card. She'd wanted to buy new furniture for the living room and didn't want to bother me about it. Then came another card for clothes, then another for jewelry, then personal loans to pay off the cards, then more cards to cover the loan payments. A classic debt spiral, except she'd hidden every single bit of it from me. I picked up a statement. $22,000 at Tiffany's. She told me it was for our anniversary. I stared at her. $22,000 on jewelry for our anniversary, and I hadn't noticed her wearing a new diamond bracelet? She admitted she'd told me her mother gave it to her. Her mother, who'd been dead for 5 years at that point. I'd believed that story because why wouldn't I? You don't expect your wife to lie about something like that. You don't expect your wife to lie at all. I kept digging. Designer handbags, thousands of dollars at high-end boutiques, spa treatments, luxury vacations she'd taken with her friends while telling me they were budget trips. The worst part wasn't just the amount, though that was catastrophic. It was the deception. The calculated, sustained deception over years and years. I found a credit card statement from 2 years ago, the vacation to Bali. She'd told me it cost $2,000. The statement showed $18,000. She explained weakly that the other girls in her friend group were doing it, staying at luxury resorts, and she couldn't be the only one in cheap hotels, so she'd charged $16,000 extra to a secret credit card rather than having an honest conversation with her husband. By midnight, I'd gone through everything. The total damage was actually worse than Marcus had reported. With interest and fees, we were looking at over $400,000. My credit score, which had been in the high 700s, was now in the low 500s. I was uninsurable. I was unfinanceable. I was, at least on paper, completely ruined. At 55 years old, I'd been financially destroyed by the person I trusted most. I went to bed in the guest room that night. Sleep didn't come. I spent hours staring at the ceiling, the numbers running through my head on an endless loop. 400,000. 400,000. 400,000. I tried to figure out how I'd missed this. How had I not noticed? Had I been that checked out? That trusting? Or had she just been that good at hiding it? The next morning, I called my lawyer before Sarah even woke up. Tom had handled our wills and estate planning years ago. He'd been a buddy of mine since college. When I explained the situation, the line went quiet for a long moment. Tom finally spoke. He told me this was bad, really bad. I needed to separate my finances immediately. Today. And I needed to document everything. I asked him what my options were. He laid it out. Legally, I could press charges for identity theft and fraud. Practically, since we were married, a lot of those accounts, even though they were in my name alone, were going to be considered marital debt in a divorce. But we could mitigate the damage if we acted fast. Divorce. There it was, the word I'd been avoiding thinking about all night. But hearing Tom say it made it real. I told him I wanted to buy our house, just in my name. He asked if I meant the house we'd been trying to get a mortgage for, but I clarified. No, our current house. We owned it outright. It was in both our names. I wanted it in just mine. Tom went quiet again. That would require Sarah to sign off on it, he explained. And if I was heading toward divorce, she was entitled to half of everything. Even though she's the one who ruined our credit and racked up hundreds of thousands in secret debt, I asked. That's what we'd argue in court, he said, but it was complicated. Michigan was an equitable distribution state, not a 50-50 state, so we could make the case that her misconduct should be considered. But it was going to be a fight. A long, expensive fight. I thanked him and hung up. Sarah was awake now. I could hear her moving around in the kitchen, the familiar sounds of the coffee maker, cabinets opening and closing. When I went downstairs, she'd made coffee. She tried to hand me a cup, like this was any other morning, but I walked past her to pour my own. I told her we needed to talk about what happens next. She started saying she knew she'd messed up, but we could fix this together. She could get a job. We could make a payment plan. We could work through it. I asked her if she understood that what she'd done was fraud. This was identity theft. She raised her voice. She was my wife, she said, as if that somehow made it okay. Which somehow makes it worse, I told her. I informed her that I'd called Tom that morning. We were separating our finances. Today. I was taking my name off everything that was hers, and she was taking her name off everything that was mine. She said I couldn't do that. Actually, I told her I could, and if she fought me on this, I'd file a police report for identity theft. Did she want that? The color drained from her face. She asked if I would really do that. I told her to try me. She sat down across from me at the kitchen table, wrapping her hands around her coffee mug, and asked, "What about us? What about our marriage?" I admitted I didn't know yet. Right then, I couldn't even look at her without feeling sick. 23 years. 23 years she'd lied to my face every single day. Over the next week, I moved like I was on autopilot. I opened a new bank account at a completely different bank, one Sarah had no access to. I had my paycheck redirected there. I froze my credit so she couldn't open any new accounts in my name. I started the process of disputing the fraudulent charges, though Tom warned me that proving fraud against a spouse was nearly impossible. The law assumed we were a unit, that we shared financial decisions. Sarah tried everything. She cried. She apologized endlessly. She promised to change, promised to get help, promised it would never happen again. She got angry and accused me of being controlling and unsupportive, of never paying attention to her needs. She tried to blame our kids, saying the pressure of keeping up with other parents at their private school had driven her to it. She tried to blame me, saying I was always working, always focused on my career, never giving her enough attention or validation. Nothing worked because none of it addressed the fundamental issue. She'd betrayed me in the worst possible way. She'd taken my identity, my financial security, my future, and she'd gambled it all away on handbags and spa days and impressing people who probably didn't even like her. The house became a war zone. We barely spoke. When we did, it was through lawyers. Tom advised me to stay living there, to not abandon the marital home, because it could affect the divorce proceedings. So we existed in the same space like hostile roommates, each of us retreating to separate corners. I slept in the guest room. She stayed in the master bedroom. We coordinated our schedules to avoid being in the kitchen at the same time. I dove into the numbers obsessively. I contacted every creditor, every collection agency. Some of them were willing to work with me, especially when I threatened legal action for allowing accounts to be opened fraudulently. Others weren't interested. The debt was real, they said, and someone was going to have to pay it. Then, around 3 weeks after that bank appointment, I had an idea. Our house was paid off and worth about $350,000. We also had about $200,000 in various retirement accounts and savings. If I could get Sarah to sign off on me taking the house solely in my name in exchange for me assuming all of her debt, I'd essentially be buying her out. She'd walk away with the savings and retirement funds. I'd keep the house, but also keep the debt. It wasn't fair, not by a long shot. I'd be giving up retirement money I'd earned to pay for her shopping addiction, but it would give me a clean break. I could work out payment plans with creditors on my own terms, maybe even negotiate settlements for pennies on the dollar if I had cash to offer from my ongoing salary. And most importantly, I'd have my house, my space, my sanctuary away from her. Tom thought I was crazy when I proposed it. He told me I'd be giving up half my retirement to assume debt that wasn't legally mine. I could fight this in court and come out much better. I asked him how long that would take. A year, he estimated. Maybe 2 with appeals. I told him I didn't want to spend 2 years fighting with her. I wanted this over. I wanted her gone. I wanted to move forward with my life. He warned me I was angry, that I shouldn't make permanent decisions based on temporary emotions. But it wasn't temporary. Every time I looked at Sarah, every time I thought about what she'd done, the anger grew. This wasn't some mistake, some one-time lapse in judgment. This was years of calculated deception. This was her looking me in the eye every single day and lying. And I wanted her out of my life. I presented the offer to Sarah through our lawyers. She'd get $200,000 cash from our savings and retirement accounts. I'd keep the house. I'd assume all the debt. She'd have to move out within 60 days. She fought it at first. Her lawyer probably told her the same thing Tom told me, that she could do better in court. But I had something she didn't: evidence of fraud, and the willingness to use it. I told her lawyer to tell her she could take this deal, or I could file a police report, and she could explain to a criminal judge why she'd committed identity theft against her own husband. Her choice. She signed the papers a week later. The next 2 months were surreal. Sarah found an apartment across town, nothing fancy but decent enough. 2 bedrooms, modern appliances, a pool in the complex. I helped her move, which felt absolutely absurd. Here I was, loading boxes into a truck for the woman who'd ruined my credit and stolen my identity. But I wanted her gone. I wanted this chapter closed. The day she moved out, I stood in our empty master bedroom and felt nothing. No sadness, no relief, just a hollow numbness. The house echoed without her things in it. I'd bought out her half of the furniture too, paying cash from what was left of my savings for pieces she'd selected years ago when we were happy. Or at least when I thought we were happy. My kids were devastated. Rachel, our 22-year-old daughter, blamed me for being too harsh. She kept saying that Mom had a problem, that she needed help, not punishment. Marcus, our 20-year-old son, was angry at his mother but also conflicted about the divorce. They'd grown up in this house, had memories here with both of us. I tried to explain what had happened, without completely destroying their image of their mother. But there's no good way to tell your kids that one parent committed fraud against the other. There's no good way to explain that their mother opened 17 credit accounts and spent nearly $400,000 without their father knowing. The house sale idea I'd originally gone to the bank for fell through, obviously. We'd wanted to upgrade, to get something bigger with more land now that the kids were out of the house. But that was okay. I didn't need a bigger house anymore. I just needed my house, this one, the one I'd now effectively paid for twice. With Sarah gone, I began the real work of cleaning up the financial disaster she'd left behind. I negotiated with creditors, spending hours on the phone explaining the situation, offering lump sum settlements for reduced amounts. Some were sympathetic, most weren't. My savings were decimated, but I was able to knock the total debt down to about $250,000. I set up payment plans for what remained, aggressive ones that would hurt but were manageable on my salary. I rebuilt my credit slowly, painfully. I opened secured credit cards, putting down deposits to guarantee the credit line. I took out small installment loans and paid them off early. I monitored my credit report obsessively, checking every week for errors or changes. It would take years to get back to where I was, but at least I was moving in the right direction. The divorce was finalized 4 months after Sarah moved out. No fault, equitable distribution, just like Tom had warned. But the settlement I'd negotiated held up. She got her money. I kept my house and my debt. We split what was left of the retirement accounts according to our original agreement. It was done. 23 years of marriage, over. People asked me constantly if I was okay. Friends, family, coworkers who'd heard what happened through the grapevine. I gave them the standard answers. I'm fine. It's for the best. Moving forward, all the platitudes you're supposed to say when your life falls apart. All the things people want to hear so they don't have to sit in the discomfort of your pain. The truth was more complicated. Some days I was angry, furiously, violently angry at what Sarah had done. I'd be driving to work and suddenly grip the steering wheel so hard my hands ached. Other days I felt stupid for not seeing it sooner, for being so trusting, so naive. And occasionally, late at night when the house was too quiet, I felt sad for what we'd lost, or what I'd thought we had. But mostly, I felt free. Free from the lies. Free from the deception. Free from constantly wondering what else she was hiding. Living alone in a house I now truly owned. Making payments on debt that was slowly shrinking month by month. I could breathe again. I could sleep at night knowing exactly where every dollar was going. I changed things after she left. I repainted rooms, choosing colors I liked instead of the neutral tones Sarah had always insisted on. I rearranged furniture, making the space work for one person instead of two. The master bedroom became an office. I moved into one of the kids' old rooms, the one with better morning light. I got rid of anything that reminded me too much of her. Donated it, sold it, threw it away. 6 months after the divorce was finalized, I got a message from Sarah. She wanted to meet for coffee. She said she wanted to apologize properly, face to face. I almost said no. I had moved on. I did not need her apology. But curiosity got the better of me. We met at a Starbucks halfway between her apartment and my house. She looked different. Her hair was shorter, styled differently. She had lost weight. She seemed smaller somehow, diminished. We sat across from each other, both of us holding cups we were too nervous to drink from. She told me she was in therapy for spending addiction and compulsive lying. Her therapist had told her she needed to make amends as part of her recovery. I asked if that is what this was, making amends as part of a 12-step program or whatever. She said she wanted me to know that she was sorry, really, genuinely sorry for what she had done to me. I studied her face, looking for signs of manipulation or deception, but she seemed sincere. I told her okay. She asked if that was it. Just okay? I asked her what she wanted me to say. That I forgave her? I did not. That what she did was okay? It was not. She had destroyed 23 years of trust in a single afternoon. She had committed fraud against me. She had ruined my credit, decimated my savings, forced me to buy her out of a house we'd built together just to get her out of my life. She started crying again, just like she had in that bank office. She said she knew all of that, but she needed me to understand that she'd been sick. She'd had a problem, an addiction, and she hadn't known how to ask for help. I told her that having a problem didn't excuse lying about it for 8 years. She could have gotten help. She could have told me the truth. Instead, she'd hidden it and made it worse and worse until it all exploded in that bank office. She said she'd been ashamed. I told her I'd been ashamed too. We didn't meet again after that. She sent a few more messages over the next year, updates on her therapy, promises that she was doing better. I responded politely but distantly. Whatever part of me that had loved her was gone, cauterized by betrayal. Now, sitting here almost 2 years later, I can say I'm okay. My credit score is back in the 600s and climbing. The debt is down to under $100,000. I've started dating again, cautiously, always hyper-aware of red flags and financial warning signs. I've learned to trust again, but differently, more carefully. I check credit reports regularly. I keep my finances separate. The house is mine, truly and completely mine. No one's name on the deed but mine. No one's financial secrets hiding in closets. Just me, my space, my fresh start. I've told this story to a few people, usually other men going through divorces or discovering their own financial betrayals. They always ask the same question. How did I not see it coming? The honest answer? I trusted her. I trusted my wife completely, and she exploited that trust systematically for almost a decade. Could I have caught it sooner? Probably. Should I have been monitoring our credit more carefully? Definitely. But I don't think I was wrong to trust my spouse. She was wrong to betray that trust. Sometimes I drive past Sarah's apartment complex. Not on purpose, it's just on the way to the grocery store I prefer. I don't stop, don't have any desire to see her or talk to her. But I wonder sometimes if she really has changed. If therapy really fixed whatever was broken inside her that made her think destroying our lives was acceptable. I hope so, for her sake. Not for mine, because it doesn't affect me anymore. But I hope she's better because no one should live with that kind of compulsion. The loan officer, Marcus, he probably has no idea that his disclosure that day changed my entire life. In a strange way, I'm grateful to him. If he hadn't shown me that screen, I could have gone years more without knowing. The debt could have grown even larger. The deception could have deepened. At least this way, I found out while I was still young enough to rebuild. 55 isn't too old to start over. My kids have adjusted better than I expected. They see their mother regularly, and I never badmouth her to them despite my anger. They're adults now. They can form their own opinions. Rachel has become much more interested in financial literacy since all this happened. She's studying accounting now, actually. Marcus checks in on me regularly, making sure I'm okay, making sure the house is maintained. They're good kids, and I'm proud of them for handling this with grace. As for the house I'd originally wanted to buy, the bigger one with more land and the updated kitchen, I don't think about it much anymore. I have what I need right here. 4 walls, a roof, and the peace of mind that comes with knowing exactly who owns what and exactly where every dollar goes. After everything that happened, that peace is worth more than any amount of square footage or granite countertops. People say that divorce is like a death, that you grieve the end of a marriage the way you grieve losing someone. They're right. But what they don't tell you is that sometimes, after the grief passes, you find something better. Yourself. Unburdened, undeceived, and finally, genuinely free. I'm not the same man who walked into that bank office 2 years ago. I'm more careful now, more skeptical, but also more honest with myself about what I will and won't tolerate. And I won't tolerate lies. Not anymore. Not ever again.